Transit's a really effective solution. The stat I really like to cite is, all of the buses, most of them come into Boulder here and they go down Broadway into the downtown Boulder station. And that greater than 50% of people traveling on Broadway between Baseline and Canyon Boulevard are on a bus.
Oh, nice.
And so, that really goes to show transit is an effective tool to move people. It takes the perspective of a transit rider to understand what's not working with RTD. You can look at data all you want, and you can look at, and this is all the stuff I love looking at. You can look at all of these things so much, but my greatest understanding of where the system works and where it doesn't is from using it myself.
We ain't throwing starfish here, now we're having a good party. Talking about structural change. We believe the land is sacred, even beneath that vacant parking lot, where the weeds are doing their best to express the need for something different. Gonna make some space for you and me to live here all together. Gonna make it safe and fun for kids to get around the town. Gonna find me a residential pedestrian district where I can gracefully grow older. Gonna spend my remaining years sharing Boulder.
Hello, Boulder and the wider world. Welcome back to the Sharing Boulder podcast. I'm kicking off Season 4, Episode 51 with an interview with Jack Rosenthal, who is an RTD Board candidate and transit enthusiast. I met Jack at his downtown Boulder office, where we talked about our mutual love for public transit, the challenges RTD faces, why we need a train to Boulder and Longmont, and why he's running for elected office. Jack rolled up to our appointment on a one-wheel with the confidence of someone who has put thousands of miles on that rugged micromobility device. He rolled into the building, onto the elevator, and down the hallway as I followed on foot and admired his agility and balance. I appreciate Jack's plain-spoken approach, his love for analyzing data, and his ability to generate grassroots excitement for his campaign for the RTD Board. I will have more to say about Season 4 of Sharing Boulder in a future episode. But for now, I hope you enjoyed this conversation with Jack Rosenthal.
You got it?
Got it.
Okay.
Jack, welcome to Sharing Boulder. Thanks so much for being on the podcast.
Thank you for having me here. I really appreciate this.
Yeah, you bet. Do you mind introducing yourself for a moment?
Yeah, I'm Jack Rosenthal. I am a candidate for the RTD Board of Directors for Director District O, which is here in Boulder County. West and 95th Street is the district.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, good luck. Thank you for your service. Thank you for running.
Yeah.
It's been a minute since I hosted a podcast. It's like I've been on a 2-year hiatus, so hopefully I'll show up for this. Okay. So, well, I got to know you through a kickoff party that you had for your campaign. And it was a super great party, lots of good food, lots of interesting people. One of the demographics that showed up was a bunch of 20-something-year-olds who are friends of yours.
Yeah. I mean, we had everyone there. I think the kickoff party, I initially we had to reschedule the kickoff by a day because of some ferocious winds.
Terrible winds.
And initially the RSVPs was at like 110.
Whoa.
And we rescheduled it by a day so that way we didn't have to throw out any of the food or anything. Even then, I think there was like 80 some people there probably.
Yeah, it was a good crowd. It was really fun.
I honestly never thought there would be that much interest in an RTD race. Historically these have been a little bit like a city council race or whatever, and that was a massive turnout. So
yeah, that was super cool. Well, one of the young people who came up to me and started chatting asked me what RTD was, and like asked it in contrast to like what's the difference between CDOT and RTD, and I was sort of like, oh, where to begin? But I basically just gave a thumbnail that CDOT would fix a bridge or make decisions about infrastructure improvements for highways and transit, and RTD is providing transportation service. So take it from there. What else do we need to know about RTD?
RTD, if you don't know the letters, is Regional Transportation District, and it was set up in the state legislature in 1973, basically as a taxation district in which it's a very, very large district that encompasses all the way from Boulder County all the way down to, the south end is the south end of, Jefferson County. And so it's really encompassing the greater Denver metro area, and that includes 44 different municipalities. And using this district, a 1% sales tax is collected, and that is what funds the agency's operations, and they run the buses and the trains around here. And so they provide a public transit service.
Great. 44 municipalities. I wonder how many of those I could name. Probably 5, 10.
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm a big RTD user, not a casual, occasional user. Like this is part of my daily life is to commute around mostly on the FF1, but I've used almost every local bus in Boulder.
Yeah.
And several in Denver as well. And I know that you kind of walk the walk as well. Yep. Tell me about your transportation situation.
So I've always used RTD. Initially, I grew up in Steamboat Springs, so there we had free buses and whatnot, and that was all awesome stuff. I moved up to the Denver area here in 2014, and initially I lived in Golden, and I was a student at Colorado School of Mines there, and the W line had just opened, and it was really a great introduction into RTD and public transit and whatnot. And as I moved up to Boulder, I moved up to Boulder 2018, started a job at Google, and I found that, wow, I can actually live car-free here. And so I've been an RTD user forever, and it's a part of my life. It's how I get everywhere. And I think I've been extremely adamant. I will take RTD there if I absolutely can, and if not, I'm gonna get wherever I need to go on my one wheel or combine it. And so that is how I get around. It's a part of my life. I actually figured out RTD has a little API that you can hit. It's not documented or public or anything, but you can count your number of boardings if you use the MyRide app or a MyRide card. Okay. And so I had for 2025, I had 677 taps recorded that I got on an RTD
that's a lot.
Bus. So,
well, I'm pretty sure I have more taps than that, but not in the last year. I've been riding since 2002, and lived in Westminster and took the BL or the BX. The little piece I was trying to remember earlier was that word district. I just automatically map it to a taxing area. It's like some way of setting up a taxation for some specific purpose. So it's not unlike the recently manifested Boulder Library District. It doesn't correspond exactly to a city. It includes Boulder and some extra area. It's not exactly Boulder County. But it's set up to collect taxes for that purpose.
Right. And it's intended to serve everybody who lives inside of that district. Now, there's some really far out places inside of RTD's district boundaries. It goes all the way to the Continental Divide, but I think in reality, it's they provide a huge service area, and that you can ride RTD all the way down to Conifer and all the way down to Parker, and you can ride it as far north as the Walmart in Longmont, and so it is quite the service area.
What's the service that runs the Bustang?
Bustang is through CDOT.
CDOT actually does run transit as well.
CDOT provides statewide transit.
Okay.
And I think that's looking at providing transit which is inner city.
Okay.
I rode the Bustang back from Steamboat on Thursday.
Nice.
And so, it's the sort of thing that it's one trip a day will get you from, these far out mountain towns back into Denver here. And so,
I did the exercise of riding down to Colorado Springs to visit family, and it wasn't super convenient. It was on a holiday, and so it was holiday schedule, and but it was very comfortable, as is the FF1.
Yeah.
Okay, so we know a little bit about RTD. We know and love it. Ride it every day, most weeks, anyways.
Yeah.
Program note. I wanted to say about your how you showed up here today. You rolled up on your one wheel.
Yep. Yeah.
After missing a bolt.
Yep.
And and then we like hopped in the elevator. You're still on your one wheel, scooting through the building.
That is, my favorite thing. I got into that, 2020 COVID pandemic, 2021. During the COVID-19 pandemic, I'm like, nothing better to do, and a friend let me borrow his board for a bit, and I got hooked on it, and ever since then, I just combine it with RTD. I use it to get everywhere. So
it's such. I feel like, I mean, I know that people have one wheels, but I immediately now I associate you with a one wheel, and it's like your look. It's like your signature way of moving through the world. So that's pretty cool. Okay, so I wanted to ask you specifically about the board that you're campaigning to be an elected official on.
Mm-hmm.
Tell us about what the board does.
Yeah, so the RTD Board is the board of directors for the agency, and it's composed of, right now, 15 elected directors, each of whom represents their area of about 215,000 constituents, and each of them is not only a representative of their area and can advocate for their needs within RTD, but also, very much, I think the board takes a regional perspective that people don't just commute around Boulder County, and yes, that's the majority of where I get around in RTD is through Boulder County, but that a lot of people have to make commutes into Denver and whatnot for their jobs, and so I think the board of directors is not unlike a city council in that each area elects who they would like to represent them there, and that they provide governance for the agency, which is set up with permanent staff to actually run it, and
so it's 15. They're like wards. What was the word that you used?
Director districts.
Director districts.
Yeah.
And ours is letter O here in Boulder, but they go A through O, or like what letter of the alphabet is O?
O is the 15th letter.
I was going to say, it feels like it must be very close to like.
We're at the end of the list.
Okay. Cool. So who is our current director?
Yeah.
And what have they done?
Yeah, so our current director is Lynn Geisinger on the RTD board, and she was the chair of the board for a while. And
is she running for re-election?
She's not running for re-election. There's two term limits, so they're 4-year terms, and so she is termed out here. So this one's an open seat, and so I think very much so. I would like to say that I see Karen Banker up in Longmont and the District I as very much also the Boulder County crew that we have here representing us, and so I see basically the two of them as they think about Boulder County and whatnot from different perspectives, but very much integrated together, and Karen is somebody I really look forward to working with on the board. So,
cool.
Yeah.
She's running unopposed, or she's a likely candidate?
She is. The terms are offset by 2 years.
So she's not running right now.
So she's not running. She's in there till at least 28. So,
okay, great. Yeah. Okay, so you explained the board. There's 15 members. They all get a single vote. Are you rubber stamping what some RTD staff? I guess not you. Potentially you. But do they like my model for
Yeah.
what this might be is like the weak mayor system we have in Boulder, where
Yeah.
city staff and the city manager, they do a lot of heavy lifting with respect to putting ordinances together and setting direction. I mean, I'm not saying that city council just does everything they ask them, but there's a fair bit of what is city staff ready to do,
Yep.
approach. So what is that relationship like with the board and the...
Similar, and I would say the way that the current board treats it is that they, there's some people on the board who are really, motivated to make change, but, a lot of the board right now simply sits there and does the rubber stamp deal.
Can you give an example of the sort of thing that
Yeah.
transpires? I assume the meetings are open to the public.
Yeah,
and where are they held?
They're held in Denver at 1660 Blake Street, which is, if you remember the old Market Street station, it's the RTD office building that was right next to it, and is now redeveloped and everything.
Okay,
But,
nice building.
Yeah, it's a okay
Okay,
place.
all right.
The meetings are held there once a month, as well as the committee meetings are generally online via Zoom and whatnot, and so you can attend those and listen in and what goes on. And I think there's a lot of things that comes to the board. Every single set of service changes, they go to the board of directors for feedback, and the board of directors, has to approve those. So if they're going to change any bus route anywhere, it's gonna be at least in a package that's stamped off by the board of directors. The board of directors is responsible for approving the budget and whatnot. And recently, we just saw that the board was willing to push back on some of staff's recommendations on the budget. So I think the board is.
I'm sorry, I wasn't paying attention.
Yeah.
Not to the conversation, but
Yeah.
to the
Okay.
to the recent
Yeah.
budget pushback.
Yeah.
So can you give a little thumbnail of what that looked like?
Yeah, so the board just approved the budget for 2026, and one of the, as well as a 5-year financial forecast. And one of the things that there was pushback from that the board was able to redirect staff is that staff had recommended that the agency spend $537 million in bonds over the next decade to replace the bus fleet. And they're going to replace them with diesel buses. There was really nothing exciting about that, and this is really never how fleet replacement has been done before, is spending $500 million and buying them yourself. There's normally grants and whatnot that can help offset that, and right now those grants and stuff that we can get is the clean air sort of energy grants. So if we wanted hybrid or battery electric buses, that there's grants out there that we could go get for those.
And I would just say we do want those things.
Right.
I as someone who's frequently I probably spend more time on my bicycle
Yeah.
than I do on
Yeah.
riding RTD.
Yeah.
And my number one complaint of people who are polluting the air I'm
Yeah.
breathing as I'm struggling to get up a hill on an e-bike,
Yeah.
not really struggling that hard, but
Yeah.
is the air pollution from those diesel
Yeah.
buses, which
Yep.
it just drives me crazy.
And the agency went off and tried to portray them as clean diesel. I don't think that's like clean coal. Is there clean diesel?
Yeah, that's what folks ask
Right.
Volkswagen about clean diesel, right?
Right. Yeah. And so it's I think the agency. It's actually a difficult problem. We can't just say we're just going to go buy a bunch of battery electric buses, because where are we going to charge them? There's a whole facilities question, et cetera. And the thing is that we need a plan to actually make that transition and to get there. And I think it's going to involve, we're going to get some hybrids. We're going to start out with some battery electric buses that we can support with the facilities that we got. And look at what is that next facility upgrade that's going to enable it. The Boulder Garage, for example, is from, I believe, 81 it might have been constructed, and it's not in the greatest shape.
It looked old 20 years ago,
Right.
when I arrived into town.
Yeah. And so they don't have room for any more buses there, for example, as well as they don't have any facilities to charge battery electric buses, and so it's going to require facility investment to not only expand service, but look at
we have a couple of electric hop buses. Yep. There must be somewhere they plug those in.
Yeah, so the hop is actually not directly operated through RTD. RTD engages in a local partnership with the city of Boulder and CU to fund the hop. And the city of Boulder, in that aspect, is the transit agency that operates it. But in many ways, it integrates with RTD and is a seamless experience. Things like fares collected, you can just use the RTD MyRide app or an EcoPass, and it just works. And so the hop is not operated by RTD, it's operated by Via Mobility. And I presume they must have just gotten facilities to
store a few buses.
And charge them.
Okay.
And I think they're great folks running a nonprofit there. And I look in what ways can RTD partner with them more. So.
Okay, so I lost the thread just a little bit about how in this recent budget, maybe it was a kerfuffle, I don't know.
Right.
How did the staff came up with a proposal? It was like, we're going to spend half a billion?
$500 million
on bonds to upgrade buses.
Yeah.
And the board came back and said, not so fast. And then, so what did they say and what happened?
So right now the 5-year financial forecast that included the diesel bus purchase has not yet been approved, and we're really looking what is the next steps there to approve a new financial forecast. And I don't think we want purchasing a ton of diesel buses in that financial forecast. However, the budget for 2026, extremely interesting, one of RTD's largest operating budgets ever. And I think one example of where the board did good on pushing back on staff's needs here is that there was $20 million in this budget. Once again, and this was for purchase of new accessoride vehicles, which are these cutaway, they so call it, buses that are served for paratransit service. And so, it's true that fleet is aging and not a lot of them are holding up well, but once again, this is the area where we could, it's a small enough problem that we could address it with electric. Or hybrid, one of the two, and that the agency hadn't planned any of that. They're just like, we're just gonna go buy more gas buses, and they don't last that long. And there's actually a lot of quality products out there that might last better than some of these cutaway gas buses. And so I think the agency's been asked to hold on to what they've got for now and keep it working, and I think we need to find and address a plan there. And the cool thing is with this sort of thing is that there are grants and whatnot that we can pursue, especially for clean air alternative options. So
I don't have a lot of hope that electric vehicles are going to save the planet, except to the extent that we share them and they're used for high capacity, high volume public transit. And so I'm all for e-buses that are reliable, especially if they last a long time, which I assume they do.
Yeah, I very much feel the same way. It's, I think public transit does a lot. It gets every person who's on a bus they're probably not in a car on the road. Maybe we're offsetting a couple of bike trips, but in reality, the majority of the trips that are being offset, somebody on a bus or train would have otherwise driven a car. And so, very much, RTD's goal should be towards, the environment and towards congestion and all of these sorts of problems that public transit is a really effective tool to solve. And so, I think seeing electric and whatnot applied to that is really exciting.
So I want to ask a kind of abstract structural question about the board versus the staff. I assume there's like a a staff with executives that kind of run the show. And kind of maybe if you could just describe to me like what's dysfunctional about the current board, or how the board typically works, maybe I should say, and how they guide staff or the organization, and how should that be remedied, and what should a healthy relationship look like?
So the agency, is the board has a single report, one actual employee that reports to them, and that is the general manager and chief executive officer of RTD, which is Deborah Johnson right now. And she was hired in 2020 as we needed a new chief executive officer. And she is, the general point of contact for how the board interacts with the agency. There's some other interaction. Staff will attend board meetings.
I'm sorry, she's at the top of the agency?
Yeah, she's at the top of the agency.
And then so the board communicates directly to her.
So reporting structure, the GM CEO has everybody underneath them except the board, and the GM CEO reports to the board. And so, very much the agency, functionally needs a GM CEO that is willing to take a vision from the board and execute upon it. And that is the most critical task that they're going to perform, is that, the GM CEO has to be willing to not go in there with their own political motives or what they want to accomplish. They ought to be able to listen to the board of directors, who in reality runs the agency, and create the agency that is to their vision. And that is extremely important.
And so just to kind of rehash what we've just talked about, like the notion that you would put up this kind of budget with all these new diesel buses, not in the vision of the 15 people currently on the board, or is that actually kind of consistent with those folks? The
board voted down the 5-year financial forecast. They made it clear that's not what they want. An effective leadership at RTD, an effective GM CEO would have already known that before they even took it to the board.
Just the fact that they went through some process and showed up with a budget that got voted down is like, whoops.
And so, there's gonna need to be some changes at RTD to really turn them into the agency that people can trust again, to get them to work on time, that is going to not only get them to a Broncos game, but back home when it's done.
So, oh man, I've done. I feel like I've been like I'm in the fool me twice, shame on me category, because I don't know how many times it's especially embarrassing when I'm with kids or with other friends. And I've talked them into going down to Denver for some event. And then I find myself at Union Station at 11:30. And for some reason, I had a string of 11:30 cancellations, and so like the midnight bus is the last one back. So we're all sitting there for half an hour plus, waiting in a place that's not very comfortable or friendly.
And that's better than RTD completely canceled on everyone who went to the No Kings protests in Denver. And, people were left stranded there for hours with no option to get back home other than, call an Uber, et cetera.
I missed that news story. So hundreds, tens of thousands of people went downtown and they started canceling buses.
Everything that came in and out of Union Station, it was all a big mess.
Wow.
And so... other transit agencies have been functional when it came to things like No Kings, and they were able to serve people, and they weren't scared off based on the fact that it was just a protest or something. But RTD went and said, this is a protest.
Rabble rousers.
And the reality was everyone was peaceful, and that public transit would have operated just fine in that scenario, and that they didn't need to go and make drastic things like cancel all of the bus routes and whatnot through there. And what they did was not the appropriate way to handle that situation.
This was a decision made to mitigate the kind of chaos or danger they were worried about bus operators and the equipment, or do you think it might have been more sinister than that, like a politically motivated?
I don't want to make assumptions about motivations, etc., but I don't think bus operators or equipment were in danger.
Okay.
And so,
ouch.
Yeah.
Well, okay, so I want to ask you a question that I asked you at this party, this campaign launch event. I am a frequent RTD user. I sometimes feel like a crazy person for it when I'm trying new routes or have to make a connection somewhere. But my bread and butter is I get on at Table Mesa.
Yeah.
I go a few stops down into Broomfield.
Yeah.
And I get off there. I ride the FF1.
Yep.
It's super comfortable. It's on time most of the time. I just trust. I do trust it.
Yeah.
I'm a satisfied, happy customer.
Yeah.
And by the way, on this subject of the Flatiron Flyer, I read or heard at one point before the pandemic that there were 14,000 riders on the Flatiron Flyer per day.
Yep.
And that stat blew me away to the point where I went and looked at the schedule and thought, okay, this is how many people can ride on one of these buses. Here's how many buses there are.
Yeah.
Is that even actually possible?
Well, it's RTD does a lot here in Boulder. There's some 65,000 is the number I hear cars that come into the city every day. And RTD itself is offsetting, I believe, another 11,000 of those trips currently post-pandemic. And they're think about, what if there was 75 to 80,000 cars coming into Boulder per day?
Yeah,
RTD does a lot.
11,000 more than what they are now.
Right.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, that was my conclusion. Was actually looking at the schedule and thinking about how many times I ride and how many people I see on the bus. Yeah. That was a reasonable estimate, and that kind of opened my mind to the significance of what Flatiron Flyer does for us.
Transit's a really effective solution. The stat I really like to cite is, all of the buses, most of them come into Boulder here and they go down Broadway into the downtown Boulder station. And that greater than 50% of people traveling on Broadway between Baseline and Canyon Boulevard are on a bus.
Oh, nice.
And so, that really goes to show transit is an effective tool to move people.
I wonder what percentage of in-commuters are going to Boulder and downtown, and how many are going out to like the east part of town with East Boulder, where all the light industry is. And
there's probably more now that Boulder Junction is around and whatnot, and isn't a parking lot with a fence around it, and so it'd be nice if everything wasn't just a spoke into downtown Boulder. Well,
I have a really hard time getting around on the bus when I don't want to come downtown, or I need to go to. Name your favorite small business in east of Foothills.
It's RTD's last major system redesign here in Boulder was 1978, and you look at the service patterns we have today, and they renamed some of the numbered buses to fun stuff like Jump and whatnot, but it's really following the same service backbone that they figured out in the late 70s. And there's really, even RTD's latest SOP, which is the system optimization plan, that's what they use to guide their decisions in terms of how they build service, was built on a mix of data, but here for Boulder they used data that went back all the way to 2003. And I just don't think this is the same Boulder that we had in 2003, and people aren't moving the same ways. And so I think it's really, the COVID-19 pandemic changed everything, and we're people move in completely different ways here. I think it's appropriate to kind of look at what we got and ask, is this the right service pattern?
Yeah. Well, I love your stat about more than 50% of people moving from baseline to Canyon. Is that what you said, Canyon?
Yeah, baseline Canyon on Broadway.
On Broadway are on buses. That's super cool. That's actually consistent with my own experiences. Like, I always see buses when I'm biking along there. Yeah. Okay, so like we built up the Flatirons Flyer a little bit. Mm-hmm. I had one more fact about the Flatirons Flyer. Okay. Someone told me that they were replacing some number of buses at the cost of $28 million, $600,000 a pop. This was like 5-8 years ago, something like that.
Okay.
So what I wanted to say about that is I feel like $600,000 feels like an eye-popping number when you sort of imagine buying yourself a sports car. Yeah. But when you imagine the kind of infrastructure you're buying and how many miles these buses put on, and the full price tag of $28 million for whatever number of buses they bought at that time, listeners can do the math. My reaction to that is like, what a great value for less than $30 million. You can have this great upgrade, beautiful, comfortable buses that are on time on this US 36 that's doing such a great job of moving buses around.
Yeah, well.
Which is leading me, I'm leading up to this question. Yeah. Why do we need a train?
Well, so, the train, I should explain for people here who are not familiar,
Please.
In 2004, voters approved, and this would be across the entirety of RTD that voted for this, a plan called Fast Tracks, in which, they would build 130 plus miles of rail, both light rail and commuter rail, around the region. And a lot of it's been constructed so far. We all know, both the light rail downtown as well as, the great new A line to the airport and some of the commuter rail options that have come more recently. And, there's one striking corridor from the Fast Tracks plan which has pretty much nothing left, which is the train to Boulder. And it's actually...
The train to Westminster is what you mean.
It goes to Westminster right now, but as planned, it should be going through Boulder all the way up to Longmont. Obviously, it's not there, and RTD has studied it a number of times over the year in terms of feasibility and making it happen. They studied it in 2009, and things didn't exactly pan out back then, and they studied it again in 2024. I want to say last year, but it's already 26 now. That's what New Year's come. The cost has always been astronomically expensive and difficult to run service on it. Part of it because this is the only rail right-of-way which RTD doesn't own, but they have to lease from, in this case, BNSF. And so, I think the original Fast Tracks plan, I don't know if we're ever going to get to the number of trains per day and whatnot that was originally promised, but for the first time, I think we actually have the chance to make this feasible. The state has engaged in studying rail from Fort Collins all the way down to Puebla, called Front Range Passenger Rail. And as an initial segment of it, they want to do from Fort Collins to Denver. And they're asking RTD to engage in making it happen. And in terms of RTD's financial commitment to making it happen, this is the best deal we're going to ever get. It's costing RTD just about $200 million instead of possibly over $1 billion for them to construct it themselves. And so I think
I don't understand why that opens up an opportunity for the Boulder to Longmont line.
Well, so
the Fort Collins train would come down.
Yes.
Through there.
Yeah, so I see. It follows the Fast Tracks alignment and whatnot. So it goes through Boulder.
I didn't realize that.
Yeah.
I just assumed something from Fort Collins would just go straight down I-25.
No, so it's reusing the entirety of the rail right-of-way is owned by BNSF, and it's using their rail right-of-way, and that we engage with them on an agreement to lease it for our trains.
And is BNSF an eager collaborator in all of this, or are they just sort of like, are they money hungry, or like what's their...
Historically, they've given us every reason to say no. They historically have not been a good partner in making this happen, and it hasn't been until recent years that their freight traffic on this line has quieted down a bit, that I think they're looking, this is an actual source of revenue that we could go lease this out so that they can run passenger rail on it and actually make it happen. And I think it's easy to look at, the initial starter service plan is 3 trips a day in each direction. And it's easy to look at that, especially as, someone like me who rides transit every day. I'm like, geez, what is the odds that lines up to your schedule? But, the cool part is that Denver to Boulder part will be 39 minutes. And that's way faster than on the Flatiron Flyer.
How many stops would there be? I guess Westminster would stay.
Yeah, so Westminster, Broomfield, Louisville, Boulder. So
okay.
It's different than the original Fast Tracks plans, but does stop at key places along the communities there, and I think will be nice. And so I think it is, when it lines up with your schedule, it'll be a pretty fast and nice option. The really cool part is that 3 trips a day in each direction, you're like, well, what if I need to go to, a special event or whatever? How do I get home from a Broncos game? The state has indicated that they want to run additional special event service. Trains are a really effective tool to move a lot of people at once. And if you've ever even just been in Denver when a Broncos game got out and tried to get back home on the Flatiron Flyer, you probably might have experienced, well, is there going to be a seat for me? This bus is pretty full, and oftentimes it does fill up. So
I was in Dallas for a large concert once, and everyone got out of the stadium, and they just started packing people onto the light rail to move them out. And it's amazing how many people can fit in a car when people are motivated to get away from a concert venue.
Sure, that's pretty true. But I think the way we will see the rail service is that it's in addition to what we have, the Flatiron Flyer. It's not replacing the Flatiron Flyer, to be clear. It's helping offload people from the Flatiron Flyer, because the Flatiron Flyer is a very successful service that oftentimes fills up, and so it's helping provide additional.
Well, that's good, and I hope that won't derail. I mean, the bus rapid transit to Longmont is well underway. It seems like that's going to come online soon, independent of rail to Fort Collins. Right,
independent of that, and I really think we're at a point where we can say what's next, where here in Boulder, it's hard to look at what does Longmont need, but Longmont doesn't have a whole lot when it comes to RTD service, and they're not getting a whole lot back for their taxpayer dollar in terms of service, and their Longmont Denver bus service was so much more before Fast Tracks than where they're at today. And I think, do we create like a Longmont Flyer that's a direct connection from Longmont down into Denver? And so I think there's really a whole lot more possibilities after where we're at today.
Cool. Cool. Well, I feel convinced just on that argument. I really like the Flatiron Flyer. I love how flexible busing in general is. In terms of once you put a rail in, it's very difficult to reconfigure it or put in new stations or make changes. But buses, you can send them anywhere.
Yeah. It's true.
One of the, but I also, on the other side, I feel like, as someone who's just totally into housing and transportation and thinking about these issues all the time, great cities require great transit, and if we believe that transportation infrastructure is transformative and provides economic opportunity and social cohesion and connection and gets people places and reduces car dependency, like, we are way behind in terms of what other areas of the world. I mean, look at what Europe is doing and China is doing in terms of rail infrastructure. And I feel like these investments we're making right now in making sure everyone has a large truck to drive around on a large interstate, and so we can get to airports where we fly in kerosene fueled Zeppelins. It doesn't. That's a pretty bleak outlook 50, 100 years from now for our coming generations.
The numbers are there. For every dollar in the United States, for every dollar invested into public transit projects, it's returning $5 back into the local economy. And strictly from an economic perspective, public transit is a very valuable tool to drive local business and drive the local economy. So it's not just for
liberal hippies,
right?
We can make good, solid financial arguments for why this makes sense.
And so from that argument, I think we should hopefully eventually have taxpayers who are willing to make that investment into public transit. And I kind of wonder, what do things look like down the road? Could we go and ask, if we're going to run public transit here in the Denver metro area that's actually going to serve the community so that everybody has the choice to use transit instead of drive a car, I think it requires investing more than we're doing today. The sad thing is I think if we were to go to ballot here in 2026 and ask the public for more money for public transit, they would say,
where's my train?
Where's my train? And I think if you ask really anybody anywhere, they've got a nit to pick with RTD right now.
Yeah.
And without figuring out a means to restore trust in the agency, I don't think we're going to be at that point that we can, that we could go and ask people for a little more money. And I would love to, in 2030, say that we've restored RTD's reputation to the point that we could say, look, we're going to go ask for this amount of sales tax or property tax. I don't know what form the tax is in yet, but to provide 15-minute service on this core network and to provide 24-hour service on the Flatiron Flyer and these other places, and really for whatever is next in terms of upgrading RTD to the next level. And if we have a shot right now to restore that trust in RTD, and if we're successful.
Explain the opportunity.
Yeah. Right now RTD's financial outlook and future isn't great. They, the cost of operating service has gone way up, and simultaneously the agency is mostly dependent on sales tax right now. And if you're not familiar with, kind of the economics of sales tax, is that it declines year over year for every single, government that's collecting, sales tax for their operations, because people are spending less and less of their money on things that generate sales tax, the essentials like groceries and whatnot, and they have to spend more and more on housing. And this the means that sales tax provided, 20 years ago, and the means that sales tax used to provide when all of these taxes were set up is not the same as what we have today. And, I think kind of, it's sad to say, but like by 2032, mid 2030s, if RTD doesn't figure out a new sustainable source of operational revenue, then they might have to start really making drastic cuts on what they got.
So the answer I just got is, it's not so much that there's some unique opportunity for restoring trust. It's like there's like new demands of why this has to happen now. So it's like,
it's now or never. We gotta invest in public transit, and we can't do it now without fixing RTD first. Yeah. And so that's the most important thing, and that does mean building the train. And that does mean, doing every single one of these other things. Now is the time that we've got to turn the agency around because we need to.
So, I'm sorry. My brain is kind of in this space that I occupy of going up and down US 36.
Yeah.
And one of the maybe this I don't know if this would be an interesting question or not, but one of the things that I scratch my head about when I'm spending time on that interstate, freeway, whatever it is, is you hear so much when you're into urbanism, YouTube or TikTok or whatever, about the fallacy of the induced demand, the fallacy of adding new lanes to highways, all this sort of thing. But US 36, they added space and they improved the intersections, and it just seems to work year after year. I don't know. I mean, is that my perception, or is it not actually working?
It's plenty of times I've been on the Flatiron Flyer, either on US 36 or I-25, on the segment that goes into Union Station there, where you get stuck by 20 plus minutes, because of traffic, especially I-25 there.
Well, right.
Yeah.
But I assume you have the same benefit as I do, where I'm living in Boulder and commuting out of it.
I live in.
I guess I should.
Yeah.
I should qualify that I commute out of Boulder for my work, and so I'm never.
I live in Louisville and commute into Boulder for work, and in reality, now, especially now that I'm running a campaign, have been commuting everywhere to go meet with people, go commute down to RTD headquarters in Denver and whatnot. And so, I've seen, I go all the wrong places at the wrong times, maybe, because, if I'm going down to Denver in the evening, you don't get the express lanes on I-25 there. So, it depends on, the specific configuration, but oftentimes transit doesn't have the advantage on US 36 or on I-25 there. And you look and you're on a Flatiron Flyer bus that's near full, and you're like, look at all of these cars out there, each with one person in it, taking up all that space.
For sure.
Yeah.
For sure.
So, it's
Well, yeah. Apologies, listeners. I forgot that I see traffic differently than some people do because I'm not commuting into Boulder.
Yeah, it depends. I think it's not our decision to say this. It's CDOT's, but the express lanes on I-25 are operated in a very car-centric fashion, where they treat it as a toll lane, and they operate it one direction one way and the other direction the other way. And the reality is yes, they let transit use it in that direction, but improving transit in only one direction doesn't improve the reliability of that transit, because when
those buses all have to turn around.
They have to go turn around and go the other way, and so it's those express lanes are set up in a car toll-centric manner.
Right,
and
the one we're talking about is north of on I-25. It's 2 lanes.
Yep.
So I assume where you're going is that we could just make them 1 lane.
We could, for example, make them transit only, and there would be no issues with transit running both directions on that setup. Sure. Professional bus drivers with a CDL can handle going by each other. And so,
or you just reconfigure it a little bit.
You reconfigure it a little bit, but I think we have an entire system which has been set up car-brained, and it's going to take so much to change that,
including changing hearts and minds, people who like to drive everywhere.
Yeah. So.
Well, that's a whole nother conversation, honestly. You gave me this fun fact about bus ridership on Broadway.
Yeah.
I wonder if you have any other fun facts you'd love to share.
I have so many statistics plugged in right up here.
Well, give us some highlights if you don't mind.
Yeah, definitely. I think I'll give random statistics and whatnot. One of the things people often ask me about is the airport bus, which runs between Boulder and the airport. And if you're not familiar with it, it's oftentimes full.
Very full.
Yeah.
Standing in the aisle full.
Standing in the aisle full, or you can't get on full.
Yep.
It's a problem, and people have asked me, how are you going to fix it? And it's a multifaceted solution, but I don't think it means making reservations, which is one of the things I've been asked about. I don't think that's the solution. And when there's demand for transit like that, we ought to provide it. And so, I think it means things like here's the statistic I'm getting to, where I'm getting back to your point here, is the cost per boarding on that route is underneath the fare, and that is not true of pretty much every other RTD route.
I wondered if you were going there. I was like, I wonder, it seems like they should be making a profit on this particular line.
It's the cost per boarding is $9.97.
No kidding.
And that's including the overhead of maintenance of the vehicles and everything else that goes into running buses. And so that is, I think, one of RTD's few routes. The standard fare is $10 on that route, and they don't get $10 for every boarding. People use eco passes, and people use discount and senior fares, and there's youth who board, etc. But that is the one route where the fare is underneath the standard boarding,
over.
The fare. The fare is less. The fare is more than the standard boarding. So. It's like, we can actually kind of increase service here a bit. And I think it really shows there's demand for other airport services where they don't exist. Longmont needs a sky ride, for example, that could do like Longmont down to Lafayette Park and Ride and then to the airport.
For sure.
And that will alleviate demand on the AB1, because a lot of these people are driving down to Flatiron Park and Ride and getting on the airport bus there. So, the more service we can provide and to more areas will help fill that picture. So,
is it reasonable to just charge more for that particular bus just to help with revenue?
Skyride was stood up in like 97 or 98. It's been around a while, and when it was stood up, the fare back then was $10.
Whoa. Okay.
And here we are.
It's $12 now, right? Or is it still $10?
It's $10 now.
Okay.
And so here we are 3 decades later, and it's still $10.
Nearly 4.
Yeah.
Okay.
And, I think the world has changed a little bit since then.
Well, especially when you look at, you start penciling out other options. The other options are expensive. So.
Well, yeah. And I think when it comes to how our fare is collected on that route, there is other alternatives we can look at. A lot of people use that route. They park and ride, and then they pay the $2 a day after their first day, because they'll go on vacation somewhere and then come back. And, that is our pricing for the park and ride beyond a single day. Is another place that we can look at how we collect fares for airport-bound destinations.
I don't assume there's any long-term parking out by the airport that's $2 a day or anywhere close to that.
Exactly. And so, we'll still be the most price competitive option. And I think, we can look at, yes, we could increase that $10 fare maybe, but I think there's other ways we can collect that fare, and we can look at, park and rides as a mean.
Well, I hope you'll consider the various service workers that need to get out to the airport.
Definitely
daily. So they're not paying $10 a day.
I definitely agree, and they're economically some of the people who really the fare hits them the most. And a lot of airport employees get eco passes, but it's not universal. We really need to make sure that everybody who works there has the means to get there. They just tap their card and it's free to them, part of their job.
So that was a great example.
Yeah.
Do you have any others?
Yeah. I think I've got all of my numbers and spreadsheets, and that is how I operate. If you want cost per boarding of any route, only some of them I have memorized.
Okay.
But I think a whole bunch of other stuff.
So you've been doing some data analysis around using the public API through the RTD site, or just publicly available data sets?
Way more than that. I'm a regular at RTD's Cora requests, and so I've cored for stuff like I have all of the individual EcoPass tap data from when people tap their EcoPass or use their phone barcode. I have all of that data from June 2024 to June 2025, and I've used that to kind of analyze beyond what ridership data provides us to look at what are the means in which people are paying when they board, etc. And so I have a giant 8 gigabyte SQLite database that has per trip, per stop average boardings for going back to 2018. I love using that. I work in software myself. I'm very data brained when it comes to looking at these solutions. But I have now for routes numbers that RTD doesn't publish themselves. We've been able to derive these numbers. Stuff like boardings per service hour. So not only how much ridership a route gets, for example, but how much ridership is it getting compared to the amount we're investing in that route. And you wanted more interesting statistics. The skip here in Boulder has higher boardings per service hour than the 15 and 15L in Denver. If you're not familiar, that's the Colfax bus that's currently being upgraded to BRT.
Nice.
And so, we have routes here in Boulder that really do perform, and perform, greater than the standards in Denver.
Yeah, and the 15 is kind of a legendary route in Denver that that I've taken many times. Over the years.
It's got its reputation
for sure.
Yeah. I had some guy tried to steal my phone on the 15 before. I think things are a little safer here.
I've mostly just witnessed very animated conversations to the point where I was like feeling a little physically unsafe.
Yeah.
We've been going on for a while. I guess maybe wrap this up with a campaign pitch of why people should consider voting for you, and maybe how you're different than other candidates.
Yeah. I think the real thing you're going to see about me is that I actually use transit. And I mentioned it earlier, but I had 677 tapped recordings on my EcoPass in 2025. And to be clear, that's way more than I had ever had any previous year, but this is the first year I'm running a campaign, and that's added a lot to my need to get around. And I'd say I'm a transit diehard, and I try and make sure that if I'm getting somewhere, that transit is how I consider doing it. And it takes the perspective of a transit rider to understand what's not working with RTD. You can look at data all you want, and you can look at, and this is all the stuff I love looking at. You can look at all of these things so much, but my greatest understanding of where the system works and where it doesn't is from using it myself.
Absolutely.
I think that is the most important experience any RTD director could have, as well as I think what our GM CEO should have. And so,
do you happen to know what they drive?
No comment, but
some large SUV probably, huh?
Okay. So, I think it's that is. I got into this because. Not because I wanted to go run for something, not because I wanted some political title or office. And in fact, when people first asked me about, do you want to run for this seat, my answer was no, I don't have the time or the will or whatnot to do that. And, it took being convinced that I was not going to see the changes I wanted to see at RTD and the system actually fixed unless I stepped up to the plate and did it. And that's why I'm running.
That's super cool.
Yeah.
I really appreciated
Yeah.
the story that was told at the party about you giving us challenging a city council person to ride for the RTD for the first time, and taking them on the bus and opening their eyes to I thought that was super cool. Do you have anything specific to say about that?
I mean,
you're an evangelist.
This is something I do pretty frequently. It's not just, with city council members or whatever, but if it's a family member or something, or a friend who has never used RTD, I say, hey, let's go ride together.
Yeah.
And I really think, public transit could be great here.
Yeah.
In Denver, and it could be. You look at public transit elsewhere, and a lot of other systems are thriving a little more than RTD is right now, and we have the ability to be there, and it takes the perspective of a transit user to get it there.
Yeah. Well, this reminds me of something I wanted to say to you as a kind of I love your evangelistic approach in terms of like helping friends and community folks to get on the bus.
Yeah.
I think this challenge of getting someone to ride the bus for the first time requires that kind of it's like a contact sport. You have to like make plans with somebody to get them to do it. And I love this sort of grassroots.
I would love to. I've mentioned so many policy perspectives here, but a really simple one I want to bring to the RTD board is buddy passes. That nice. If you in the My Ride app or whatever record, I don't know how many boardings or whatever in a month. Say you board 10, 15 times a month or whatever. We send you an email with a free pass that you could give to a friend.
Yeah. For one of those first rides for them. And have the users of our system be ambassadors to everyone else. So I wanted to praise you. I also have kind of this possible challenge. One of the things, as I kind of thought about the speech that you made, that I thought, you missed an opportunity to encourage people to ride the bus.
Well.
And I don't know if that was deliberate. I mean, you say but
I absolutely do, and I do every day.
I think because one of the questions you were asked was about an ADA rider who's frustrated. The example that was given was a blind person who they're never going to have a driver's license and get around in a car. And taking Uber everywhere is not an option for a lot of low-income earners. And
Uber's more expensive than ever now. Yeah.
And one of the ways I think about my commitment to riding the bus is it enables other people to have, the more I use it, the more it makes it available for other people. And so, like when you're in a room full of like donor class Boulder socialites, like. You ought to make them raise their hand if they've never ridden the bus and say, I challenge you to ride the bus.
I think the sign of a developed nation is, and this is some quote from somebody I'm not recalling, but the sign of a developed nation is one in which the rich also choose to use public transit.
For sure.
And that, a system which works better for everyone is going to work better for the people who need it most. If we designed a system that's only for the people who absolutely needed it, who had no other choice. 30% of Americans don't have a driver's license. It's actually a shocking number of people who don't have the choice to drive. But if we design a system which only caters to them, it's not going to work as well as a system which caters to everyone. And I think that's really the key detail is that you got to build something that works for as many people as we can, and make transit the obvious choice to get where you need to go, so that you can sit on your laptop or your phone while you're headed there, and you don't have to worry about parking when you get there. That's what I love most about transit. But
Yep. Yeah, for sure. All that time you reclaim.
Right. Yeah. And so,
Jack, thank you so much for being on the
yeah.
podcast. This has been a lovely conversation. I learned a lot.
Yeah, I really thank you for having me. This is really nice chatting with you and whatnot. And so, I hope people have the chance to, come to one of my campaign events, learn a little bit more.
Where can they find out more about you?
Yeah. My website is jackforrtd.com, and I'm also on Facebook, Jack Rosenthal, Instagram, Jack for RTD. Can find me on LinkedIn or whatever other platforms you use, and follow along with my race here, and we'll see if we can actually transform RTD together. And I'd love if you could help me with your input of what is it we need to fix in RTD, because I believe that's the most important perspective.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Well, thanks again for your service and for putting yourself out there to run, and good luck.
Yeah. Well, thank you for having me.
You're welcome.
Gonna find me a residential pedestrian district where I can gracefully grow older. Gonna spend my remaining years sharing Boulder.
Thank you for listening to Sharing Boulder. Please support the podcast by sharing it with your friends and neighbors. You can contact me at linktree.com/Philip Ogren, which you can find by visiting sharingboulder.us, where you can also find show notes and previous episodes. This episode of Sharing Boulder was produced and edited by Philip Ogren. The music was created by Nathaniel Ogren and Sack Lunch. Keep sharing, Boulder.